We're back here for part 2, Big Things Fantasy Football League Championship game. And now we're going to go over the coaches' interviews as well as the picks. And let's first take it and talk about the interview that we're going to take it to the interview that we had a couple of days ago with Coach Devon Henry of the Bad News Cock Blockers, who specifically stated to myself, he said, you know what? Let me tell you something. I don't need to take advice from a coach who's 6-6. That's what he said to me. But he seems to forget that number one, right now, media. Number two, a year ago I was in his same position, playing in a championship game. So you know, though he did say that to me, I understand he's an emotional, fiery guy who just, you know, basically he's gonna do what he's gonna do, and that's what he said to me. He said, I've got Jay Cutler, I've got Brian Westbrook, who has a phenomenal matchup against Houston. He said, I've got Steve Slayton. Do you know another running back in NFL history and the history of the game that's better than Steve Slayton? You know, and I tried to tell him, I said, well, Coach, I remember Steve Slayton couldn't finish a 10-game season back at West Virginia, and here he is, a rookie in the NFL, in a very hard game against the Tennessee Titans. And he said, hogwash, I don't want to hear that from you. He said, I've got Leon Washington, who returns kickoffs 140 yards at a time. Brandon Marshall, he told me specifically, he said, I've got players. I could care less about what's in the other locker room on the other side of the stadium. It's about my team. I'm going to go in and fire them up, and I'm going to get it done. What I'm going to do to this team today will be unprecedented. I will go down, these are direct words, I will go down as the best cock-blocking head coach ever in the Big Things Fantasy Football League. Ever. So I said, that's great, Coach. It's greatly appreciated for you sitting down and speaking with us. I thank you for taking the time, and good luck to you is what I said. He said, thank you. Move, bitch. So we went on the other side, and you know, we sat down and we tried to talk to the coach of the Harlem Giants, Coach Elvis Harry. And you know, in reference to the year, Coach Harry coming off of what could be an unparalleled season from a year ago. Didn't have a championship game, but he had a winning record, made the playoffs, and did not even select his team. The year before that, his first year in Fantasy Football League, he was just finding out the do's and don'ts. So in a short time of 3 years, he's made the jump from starting head coach, getting a job, to the championship. You know, and Coach Harry said to me, he said, you know, I have a lot of respect for you, but at this time I respectfully decline to the opportunity to sit down with you and pursue this interview process. Every second is valuable in preparation for preparing for our opponent for this weekend. So I said, Coach, you know what, I definitely would love to have the moment to sit down and talk with you, but if you do not, I do respect what you're going through this week. Is, you know, you're going through a championship game that is very, very important. So I do not want to impose. I told him, I said, I do not want to impose on you. If you feel like the preparation is well needed, then it's understandable. Also, I spoke with some coaches around the league, and their take was, Coach Oliver from the Hartford Hospital said, you know, I see it as a very close game, but I see the Harlem Giants pulling it off. I spoke with Coach Jones from the Detroit Super Geniuses, and he said that he sees the Cock Blockers pulling it off, as well as in a short game. Dream Killers. I spoke with Coach Bell and Wee Valerie, and they both pulled out their stops for the Harlem Giants. The Illegal Aliens coach, Christian, he said, I could care less. They're not me. They don't have Kurt Warner, and I've got a big game this week because I'm still pulling out all the stops. I'm still the best team in the league, is what he said. But I understand he's still a little heartbroken from suffering his huge defeat last week from the Giants in what was a close game. So let's get it. You know, I've talked about it, and like I said, Coach Henry stated no one expected him to be here. We're going to go out and do what we do. Who cares about anybody else on the other side of the stadium? I'm putting up these players. I don't care. Coach Harry is basically said, you know what? I am taking the maximum amount of time to produce effectively for what is clearly the most important game of my fantasy football league career. With what I see, the only flaw that could be in changes from a media perspective, we'll get back to you in a second. But first, let's take the geographical look. The northeastern sector of the country pulled it out 77-33 for the Harlem Giants, just like it was primarily expected. The southern part of the country took it 82-18, favoring the Bad News Cockblockers, and the western part of the country 49-51% picked the Bad News Giants. The north picked 48-52% for the Bad News Cockblocker. I mean, for the Harlem Giants. So let's see how we play it out here at Big Things Fantasy Football League channel. I see the scheduling misfortunes of the Bad News Cockblockers ending their stretch and putting them respectively back in their place at the number 9 season. It could happen, but I also see Peyton Manning, you know, not with great fantasy numbers that he's had. Dallas Clark getting the majority of those catches. So how do I see it? I bill it as a very tight game. So I see the Bad News Cockblockers losing heavily to the Harlem Giants. That's how you have it here. Big Things Fantasy Football League. Well, we've had a great year. We'll see you after the game. Trey Gibson here. And we'll see you. Have a great day. Enjoy the game, people.